Now, I'm really excited to introduce our speaker. Michelle Penczak is the CEO of Squared Away. She was also named Marine Corps Base I'm going to mispronounce this. I'm so sorry, Michelle. Kaneohe Bay Military Spouse of the Year in 2019. And Michelle is a virtual assistant.
It's always
one more time.
Kaneohe Bay. It's always fun to pronounce. It took me a little while.
I love that. It reminds me of like all the city names we would drive through on like road trips in Florida. They get to be really fun to pronounce. So Michelle, you are a virtual assistant by trade and a military spouse. Michelle's husband, Sean, is an MV-22 pilot in the Marine Corps. Through multiple relocations and deployments, Michelle built a business that became the foundation for Squared Away. It's a team of 130 remote executive assistants that is composed almost entirely of military spouses. Michelle's own experience as a military spouse gives her a unique insight into the multitude of challenges facing other milspos who want to have a career of their own. Michelle is currently based out of San Diego, California. This is her 4th duty station in 8 years of marriage, so clearly you are very good at packing. And in her spare time, she is also living life dangerously as a boy mom to Sawyer, who's 5, and Jameson, who's 2. So welcome, Michelle. We're so happy to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And yes, at this point, I have a certification in packing and moving, or at least should.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about your journey. Obviously, the inspiration behind building Squared Away started as an outlet for yourself, but can you share with us a little bit more about what led to you forming Squared Away as a company?
Oh my goodness, it was such a crazy journey looking back, but I went into being a military spouse with such high hopes and I guess just very high wishes of employment. I had a really great background and was like, oh, absolutely, I can find a job anywhere. I have all this great admin experience. Absolutely not the case. I probably filled out over 80 applications when we were moving to our first duty station, and I got a lot of interviews, but every single time it was, oh, what brings you to Jacksonville, North Carolina? Can guarantee it's absolutely not the scenery that brings me there. My husband's a pilot in the Marine Corps. Oh, great. Thanks for coming out. We'll be in touch. Guess what? They were never in touch. And if they were going to tell me, hey, you're not the right fit for whatever reason. And
sorry to interrupt, but would you say that in your experience, at least, like it was detrimental to your application to say that you were a military spouse? Was it easier to be like, oh, we moved here for my husband's job and try and leave it at that?
Oh, for sure. And then they would kind of dig a little bit and say, oh, well, what's his job? Oh, you got me there kind of deal. And it was always leading back to I'm connected to the military as a military spouse. And it definitely wasn't for lack of experience. I literally couldn't get a job answering phones at a law firm kind of deal. And my previous experience, this is something I'm definitely overqualified to do. So it was very frustrating and just, it took a toll on my mental health because I really wanted to work. And I started applying for jobs online. I found a virtual assistant company that I was able to kind of dive right in head first and was like, yes, I found my calling. I can do all the things. This is amazing. And it really worked well with our lifestyle. I worked through a Afghanistan deployment, through all the crazy storms, because trust me, you don't get a snow day when you're working remotely. And it was phenomenal. And I was able to grow with this company to the point where I felt comfortable saying, oh, great, I have this career. I feel set. You're set in yours. Let's have a kid. So we started planning for a family. And then in true Marine Corps fashion, my husband deployed when I was 3 months pregnant. And then 2 weeks later, I woke up to an email essentially saying, I don't have a job anymore. Oh. And there was no rhyme or reason to why it happened overnight. It's a fun Googleable story from 2015. So if you're interested, feel free to dive in there. But I was, to be honest, a hot hormonal mess at that point. My husband was deployed. I mean, it was a bad country song kind of deal. And So when we had the permission to kind of take our clients with us, all of my clients were like, yes, absolutely, let's do this. So I started working independently with all of my clients and building up with more clients because I'm crazy. So I started doing that. And then January, my husband came home about 5 months later, and I took a grand total of 2 weeks off to have my little boy. I know I'm a little
How decadent of you. Jeez.
I'm a little bit nuts. So I'm going to go ahead and preface this with don't be like Michelle. But I took 2 weeks off, and because there was nobody to work with my clients except for me, and I wanted them to be taken care of. So did the whole mom thing. It was great and crazy at the same time. And then a few months later, my husband came home and said, hey, we have orders to Hawaii. I needed a pause because I was like, we are on the East Coast and you're getting me to think I have to take my business 6 time zones away. How am I supposed to do this? Most of my clients are East Coast based. So I kind of got it in my head that I wasn't going to let time zones beat me. No flipping way was pretty much my response. So I let everybody know I was taking a week off to move, and we moved to Hawaii. I didn't tell them where because I didn't want to spook anybody. So moved to Hawaii, and I started waking up at 3 a.m. to work with my clients on the East Coast. Oh, trust me, there was lots of caffeine involved. I am fully sponsored by caffeine companies.
Yeah, I hope you got like stock in Folgers or something as a result of that. Gosh.
Trust me, if there are any coffee companies listening, I am fully ready. But it actually worked out really well because I worked from 3 to 11, and I had my entire afternoon with my little boy and was able to kind of reap the benefits of being in Hawaii. So it kind of worked out for the better. And then I went to bed with the chickens. So it was a good routine. But I did that for about 6 months, and I probably told my husband at least once a day, what am I doing? I'm a crazy person. I don't know if I can sustain this. And then after a few months, he was like, you can kind of stop saying that. Like, it's working. We're thriving. It's all good. And then I had all my friends asking me, like, how can you work? How are you able to find a job that you could literally take with you from North Carolina to Hawaii? And they were like, oh man, it's so hard to find a job. I had to get recertified to be in Hawaii from Texas, Florida, California, everywhere else. Yeah. And one of my clients called me one day, and I'm pretty sure I hung up on him right after, but he goes, I need you to grow a company because my company's growing and I need more of you. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll talk to you later.
Nothing like being told that the demand is there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, I have a 14-month-old at this point. I don't know if I can do this. So I thought about it, and one of my friends was struggling at the time really severely in finding a job. And she was kind of where I was a few years earlier. And I was like, you know what? If we're going to do this, we're going to do this with military spouses. And that's kind of where it kicked off. I had no idea what I was doing because I had no idea how to be a CEO.
Do any of us really?
I mean, it's a learning process every single day. And I learn from my team every single day because my biggest caveat is there is no degree in CEO. I wish
I was just thinking that. Seriously.
I wish there were. But that's kind of where we kicked off and kind of what kind of punched us in the gut and got us started.
Now, just a personal or question just for me. Did y'all start in, with that focus on military spouses because that was your circle, that's the people that you're used to being around? Or was it, kind of a thing of opportunity because obviously moving to another duty station means you have a fresh group of all of these people who are, already, kind of involved in that military culture. Was it, kind of like chicken before the egg or egg before the chicken?
I think it was a chicken before the egg kind of thing because military spouses just as a core group are just so spectacular. I can't even think of a better word, because they're able to accomplish so many different things and have so many different skill sets. And that's true wherever you are. You're going to get those immaculate people doing incredible things. And it didn't matter where we were always going to find them. And it was just core to military spouses at that point.
Okay. Now, there was this article about you on Forbes.com, and you had talked about that instead of being supportive of military spouses, companies rather prefer not to hire them, like we kind of talked about a little earlier. Can you elaborate on, the disparity and this exclusion that you see? Because you're right, you come from a background that is, you are very well educated, and a lot of military spouses are. It's not like, the 60s where you have military spouses who might not have ever worked outside the home before. So what do you think, what do you think this exclusion and this disparity is based on?
Oh my goodness. I think it's based on a few different things. So companies look at resumes, and military spouses have, the 40 different jobs at times on resumes. They have employment gaps. They have time that they've taken for their family, where they're, juggling multiple different calendars and schedules and just life. And then on the flip side of that, they're moving constantly. So they do have the 40 jobs, and they're like, okay, this person has 40 jobs on their resume, and it's every 6 months. Like, what's going on here? So they kind of take pause. There's either no jobs because there's a gap, or there's multiple jobs with very short turnaround. So I think they're not really looking at the entire person. I think they're looking at a piece of paper, and they're not looking at you saying, okay, Meg has 40 jobs on her resume, but she's a military spouse. But if I were to look at a resume like that, I would say, okay, well, this is a very tenacious person who wants to work and wants to add value somewhere, even though she's going to be there a short amount of time. And then on the flip side of the other person who has maybe a 15-year gap in their resume, but they have 4 kids and they've moved to 26 different countries. Okay, well, I want her managing my calendar, because she can clearly juggle everything and do everything for her family. So I would just challenge employers to kind of shift the narrative a little bit and say, okay, don't take everything at face value, and dig in a little bit with these people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's incredibly, incredibly true, is that you are having somebody look at your resume, and the idea is that it's supposed to be, kind of taken equally with everyone else's, and that, you try and level the playing field there. It's not a perfect system. We all know it for a lot of reasons, but if you think, you got to have that context, right? You have somebody that has a new job every 6 months or a new job every couple of years, but then you see that they're a military spouse, and it makes more sense. So some of the, associations that a lot of people would stereotype along with that, it's like, if like I worked at a company once where one of our employees, it was a, multi shifts. And one of our employees, when they applied, said that they couldn't work Friday afternoons or evenings. And we were like, why do you need every Friday afternoon off? They're religious and they're Jewish, and their religion required them to have Seder on Friday afternoons. So, thinking, like, looking at it of like, this guy wants every Friday off, is like, okay, dream on, buddy. But then you hear about why the person, needs that, or why that's the accommodation, or why that's the history they bring to the job. And then you realize, like, oh, okay, this is, this is a much different picture than the one I was painting in my head.
Exactly.
Now, I pulled this quote that I really wanted to read out to people. It's something that you had said on an article on cbsnews.com. As a military spouse and mom, you are managing calendars, you're balancing everybody's activities. If you can handle that, I guarantee that you can handle working with a few CEOs and their teams. So as we talked about, there's no like school to be a CEO. And someone, as a CEO and being someone who has to single-handedly take care of everything, you're a CEO of your company as well as your home. How do you manage these conflicting priorities? How do you, teach the people that you work with to prioritize, or to see, and kind of triage a situation?
So everybody hears the phrase work-life balance all the time. I actually prefer work-life harmony, because I feel like there are days where your business and your job is going to need 90% of your time and your family is going to need 10%. And then vice versa. There are going to be days where your family needs 90% and work is going to need 10. So they kind of work in harmony with each other to make sure that, you know, you're a happy, fulfilled person. But then I also let our team know, and our directors and managers are great about this as well, but blocking time to commit to different areas. So time blocking to work with your clients, also time block to hang out with your kiddos if they're home with you and be mom. We also, I have boundaries conversations with our assistants all the time, but you know, you don't exist after 5:00 p.m. every day to your clients. You are mom, your spouse, you are whatever, but you are not assistant after 5:00 every day. That is your personal time. So please, 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 please make sure you uphold those boundaries, because trust me, you give an inch, people are going to try and take a mile. And my name is behind that rule because I've done it to myself multiple times. To this day, I am guilty of doing that. But having those boundaries keeps your mental health in check, and it makes you not burn out, and it makes you more happy at working, or I can't talk today, happier at working and happier when you're actually with your family.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely something where if you can set those boundaries and remember that if you are taking these both as huge, you know, important things in your life, then they deserve that extra time. They deserve, you know, that focus. We are getting a lot of people in the chat sharing their perspective. Rose had said, I was forced out of my previous role because I asked to go full-time remote to move to Jacksonville to be with my partner. My boss didn't want people to be remote, and 3 weeks after I was forced out, the pandemic started. So now she works for a remote first company. So Rose is, you know, kind of an example of what you'd said of, you know, the pandemic forcing more companies to go remote has hopefully opened up many more opportunities for Milspos. Dr. Angela had also shared saying they totally agree. Hiring managers must learn to see non-technical abilities as valuable. The way a spouse can hold things together in a household is admirable. We talk a lot about those things here at Power to Fly as soft skills, and I cannot recommend them highly enough. There's a lot of ground that a soft skill can cover that a hard skill might really be the wrong tool for the job.
100%. And I believe that soft skills are something that you really can't teach. People innately come with. So hard skills, those are teachable. Most people can learn those very easily, but soft skills, heck yeah, bring me somebody that's never used Google Suites in a heartbeat. I'm ready to go. But if they have tenacity, absolutely.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a tutorial for basically everything, but you can't teach someone how to listen to a client. You can't really teach someone how to have patience and communicate well, you know, with somebody that they've never even seen before, someone they've never met in person. There is no rapport. You're trying to build that virtually. And that's a difficult thing. Mm-hmm. What, you know, you've given us a couple of tidbits of advice so far, but what advice would you give to other military spouses who are in a similar position as you and really afraid to start that career journey?
Do your research, number one. There are so many companies out there that say they are military spouse, veteran friendly, and plaster it all over the place. Trust me. But really dig in and see which ones are, because you know, there are so many different crazy things that come with our lifestyles, PCSs, homecomings, deployments, random TDYs. And I mean, we're also still in the middle of a crazy pandemic. So make sure that there are policies and procedures with these companies that allow you to be supported during these times, because as a military spouse, you need those. So I would say question companies like, what happens when my husband is coming home? How would you handle, you know, me finding out randomly that he's coming home in a week as opposed to 2 months from now? Or what if I were to PCS next week or something like that? Things that you have no control over. I would definitely challenge you to ask these companies.
Yes, great advice. You know, it's something we share a lot on these chats is, you know, ask the questions of these companies and listen to the answer and listen to the tone. Are they excited because you're opening them up to this whole new, you know, demographic of employees that they could tap into? Or are they begrudgingly going to maybe pay some lip service to what you need for support, but then not really deliver it when the time comes? So I love that advice. Now, we have about 9 minutes left in the session. We are starting to get some questions in from the chat. So let's try and take one of those now. If y'all have any other questions, please feel free to submit. Kaylin had asked, what advice do you have for moms who feel the need to move to part-time while their spouse is deployed? So obviously this could be, another part of the reason that there's, additional circumstances and maybe additional support that's necessary for military parents. But what advice would you give this person?
So number one, I am a big fan of going with your gut. If you feel that's what you need, then follow your gut instinct. Nobody knows what you need better than you. So take your own temperature and see what you feel is going to fit your family best. And then if there is a trusted mentor that you have, family member, friend, bounce these ideas off of them, because that is going to be, a great sounding board for you. I have a phenomenal therapist. I love therapy so much.
Yes.
If you have a therapist, bounce the idea off of your therapist just so that you can, have a sounding board for you. But always go with your gut instinct. And then, if that is something you feel the need to do, then explore that with your company and see if that's something that they could support you on.
Yeah, for sure. And just to echo what Michelle had said, people can't give you support if they don't know what you need. And one of the things that I learned early on in my career that I'm so glad I learned was if you have to ask for what you need. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It doesn't mean that the person is even going to compromise with you, but if you don't start with what you want, they're never going to offer you more than what you asked for. So if you think that you need to go to part-time, ask for part-time. Maybe they will compromise and go to like a flexible shift schedule, or flex time where you work extra on Saturdays instead of having to stay at the office all like till 5 every day of the week. So yeah, definitely ask for these things. The worst they can say is no, or no answer if you don't ask. So yeah, I love that. All right. So since your company provides these remote opportunities to military spouses, I think I'm not alone here in thinking that Squared Away has definitely taken over that market. Do you face any challenges working in a setup that is absolutely remote, where I'm assuming you've never met a lot of your coworkers or employees, right?
Yes. I think the biggest challenge is we enjoy working with each other so much. And there are times where we're like, oh, we just really want to get together and hang out, but you're in Alaska, or you're in North Dakota, or you're in Texas, and I'm in California. And it's frustrating because we really just enjoy each other so much and we want to have that in-person bonding. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Just we have a phenomenal community of people that we have friendships that have been formed over so many different states that it would be nice on occasion to get together in person.
I feel you hard on this. I've been lucky enough to meet, I think 4 of the people that I've worked with in the last 3 years. Obviously, not traveling since the pandemic started, but hopefully one day we'll get back to like our in-person events and stuff, and I'll be able to meet some more. But yeah, it's really weird, isn't it, to have these people that like you speak to every day, and I'm never going to be able to come over for lunch or something because you live in Buenos Aires. Like, I'm not there.
Exactly. And my director of operations, she started working with me in July of 2017. We actually didn't meet in person until October of 2019. So we worked together and we were building Squared Away for almost 2.5 years before we ever physically met in person. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah. All right. So one of the other situations we wanted to talk about is when military spouses have to suddenly become the breadwinner. Now, can you share any mental strategies or mantras that you apply or advise our audience to apply if you're going through these processes or need to go through this at some point?
So I would definitely say utilize your resources. The military spouse community is just phenomenal. There are LinkedIn groups or Facebook groups that are designed to support you and each other. And I feel like everybody kind of has a hand in something different. So going back to what you said, Meg, nobody knows what you need unless you ask for it. So find these forums, find these groups and ask, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Who can point me in the right direction? Because trust me, you're going to get more than a few answers. We are a just unique and resourceful crew. And I think that we've been able to do immaculate things together. So just finding, these groups, I cannot recommend military spouse Facebook groups enough, because there's constantly chatting about careers and different companies and, doing due diligence on different companies. So I would definitely highly recommend, just reaching out and saying, this is where I am, this is what I want to do, who can point me in the right direction.
That is absolutely amazing. Now we have about 3 minutes left. I know we might have time for one more question. So if y'all have questions, please send them in. But one thing I want to highlight before we get too close to the end here, I think that this discussion has definitely inspired some of our audience members. We've been hearing from a couple of them. And people, other people probably want to seek out this independence that you've really elegantly achieved. So can you tell us where people can reach out to you with their questions or, interest about what you do?
For sure. Excuse me. You can definitely send inquiries to our website at gosquaredaway.com. Or if you have questions that you want to email me, my email is michelle@gosquaredaway.com. I'm happy to answer any questions personally. It's literally my favorite thing is just supporting our military spouse community. So if you have anything, if you want to bounce personal situations off of me, I am happy to assist in any way. And if you're interested in working with us, you can also apply on our website at gosquaredaway.com/jobs.
Very cool. All right. In our last 2 minutes, I want to ask you a couple of questions that are my favorite to ask.
Okay.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you think is really crucial that people should know about Squared Away, that people should know, about your org and about this kind of, I wouldn't say it's a niche market because it is a lot of people, but what should people know about your company?
So going back to the question about, what you should ask companies and how you can find out if they're military spouse friendly is just with Squared Away. We have a process and procedure for everything. If you are going on maternity leave, if you are PCSing, if you have a sudden homecoming, exciting stuff, we have processes and procedures in place so that you can take that time off to be with your family, so that you can not feel overwhelmed with your clients and work, so that you can focus on the important things. So we do have those processes and procedures in place for all of our military spouses.
That is amazing. And I'm sure a great point to drive home to so many of our audience members today. Michelle, I just want to say huge thanks. It was really wonderful getting to talk to you today and learn more about your mission. As somebody who, my husband was in the military, he was just exiting as we got together. But I've gotten this very interesting window into, an entirely separate culture that I had never experienced prior to dating and then marrying him. And so it's really interesting to me to not only see, this underserved market, but to also see people like yourself who are, out there and trying to hit these problem points and solve them for people. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's always a pleasure to share Squared Away and everything that we're trying to do for our community.